Hello, and welcome back to Glitterature Alley. I am Tootight Lautrec, the Master Mistress of Glitterature Alley, and here we are once again at the bottom of the down staircase in the permanently sequestered remainder section of an unnamed local library which may or may not have two lions couchant on the front steps named Patience and Fortitude. And let me tell you, I have needed all the help I could get from Patience and Fortitude to get through this self-imposed quest that I've embarked upon to discuss Pulitzer Prize winning fiction that may have been buried under the dull, drab dust of time. Sometimes for good reason, even if the book may be just fine. Which brings us to today's selection. Years of Grace by Margaret Ayer Barnes won the Pulitzer Prize for the novel in 1931. And before we dig too deeply under the dust of time, let's consider a few of the other books that were published in 1930 which were not awarded the Pulitzer Prize for the novel. And those books include As I Lay Dying by William Faulkner, Cimarron by Edna Ferber, The Fifth Son of the Shoemaker by Donald Corey, Jews Without Money by Michael Gold, The Maltese Falcon by Dashiell Hammett, Not Without Laughter which was the debut novel of Langston Hughes, The 42nd Parallel, which was the first of the USA trilogy by John Dos Passos, The Woman of Andros by Thornton Wilder. Those are just a few of the books that were published in 1930 that did not win the Pulitzer Prize, because the Pulitzer Prize for the novel in 1931 went to Years of Grace by Margaret Ayer Barnes. Now, Margaret Ayer Barnes was born April 8th, 1886, and she lived until October 25th, 1967. She was born in Chicago to a wealthy family, and except for the 2 or 3 years she went to Bryn Mawr, she lived in Chicago her whole life. She married a lawyer named Cecil Barnes, with whom she had 3 children, and she didn't begin writing until the age of 40, when, during a trip to France, she got into a car accident and broke her back. So between 1926 and 1930, she wrote a collection of short stories, all of which were published before being collected into a volume, and 3 plays. The first of those plays was an adaptation of Edith Wharton's The Age of Innocence, which I think is important. Now, I have not read The Age of Innocence, having just acquired it yesterday, but I have read Wharton's The House of Mirth and Ethan Frome, and I have read Jane Austen, all of Jane Austen. And it's fair to say that Years of Grace can also be classified with those writers' books as a novel of manners. And as a novel of manners, it's fine. It's just fine. But it's just fine. 563 pages of just fine. The language is clear. She describes cities really, really well. Chicago, Boston, New York. It's contemplative, which we here in Glitterature Alley love. And it follows the life of one Jane Ward from the time she's a young girl with a crush at the age of 15 until she's a married woman with 3 grown children and some love intrigues behind her at the age of 51. Now, Jane Ward's romantic interests and entanglements comprise most of her contemplations throughout the novel. Her first love is Andre, who she meets when she's 15, and at the age of 17, he proposes. He's a French boy, and he proposes to her, but her parents forbid them to marry. He goes back to France, and they forbid them even to communicate by letter for a period of 2 years. And during that time, she meets Stephen Carver of good Boston ramen stock. And Stephen Carver also wants to marry her. And at 19, she's of the age, according to her parents, to begin to really consider this. And at 19, she finally gets the letter from Andre that she's been waiting for 2 years. And for reasons that I can't quite fathom, it upsets her so greatly that she decides to marry Stephen Carver. Because she's pretty sure she loves Stephen, and he seems just fine to marry. So, fast forward 15 years. And not because I'm lazy and don't want to talk about what happens next, but because that's what happens in the next chapter. 15 years go by. Jane is pretty happily married to Stephen. They have 3 kids, 2 boys, 2 girls and a boy. And she loves Stephen. She appreciates Stephen. Stephen is just fine. Enter Jimmy, the husband of a friend of Jane's from Bryn Mawr, who leaves New York to come to Chicago for reasons that I can't quite fathom either, to finish writing a symphony. While there, temptation arises. Resistance to the temptation arises. There are declarations of love between Jane and Jimmy, but she, spoiler, turn off now if you don't want to know, tick tock, she decides to stay married to Stephen. Everything is just fine. More life ensues, and after many, many years, there's another meeting with Andre in Paris at when she's 51 years old. And I won't tell you exactly what happens there, but all of this is very well written. And if you enjoy novels of manners that span 40 or 50 years, then this may be the book for you. It's not for me. I prefer books that concentrate the action within a period of about 1 year. That's just my kink. I like a 1 year time span with forays backward and forward to kind of round out the action, but the main action must pretty much take place within 1 year. That's where I'm happiest as a reader. And as far as novels of manners go, what Barnes, in my opinion, does not have that other writers of novels of manners like Edith Wharton, Jane Austen, and even Barbara Pinn, what she doesn't seem to have as much is wit, humor, biting observations that are illuminating and clear in their close inspection of the ridiculousness of human nature without seeming just plain old disgruntled and unhappy. And now, I don't want to just leave you with a book that I may not be recommending. So I thought I'd bring some contemporary books into the discussion so that we can talk about them. Because last week I talked about how secrets can power a story or a novel because it's implicit in a secret that there is danger. And danger is always quite exciting. Danger and conflict. And there's the danger that the good that will be that is existing in the current life will be lost if the secret is revealed. And Barnes does have characters with secrets. She does have characters who may act against their own best interests or threaten to. But these feel as though these secrets and threats kind of just cook in this novel at a level just below a simmer. They never get quite to a really heated moment. And so for an example of a writer who does do this, a contemporary writer who is expert in characters who act against their own best interests, I will point you to Jessica Treadway. And you can look at any of Jessica Treadway's work, her novels or her short stories, but in particular, I'll point you to her latest book of short stories, Infinite Dimensions, to find contemplative, well-drawn characters in compelling situations. She gets us involved with her characters, and she makes us like them, and then she puts them into situations where secrets and bad decisions drive the action in a way that's both funny and unnerving at the same time. And this is good writing, and that's what secrets and characters who tend to veer toward bad decision making should do in a novel. And I think Jessica Treadway does it very well. Margaret Ayer's approaches a level of competence in doing it, but it's only just fine. So the thing, it's not that she fails at creating these moments of tension with these secrets, but when they occur, they feel somewhat plain to me. Not boring, but almost. And I just have to say, not boring but almost is not the kind of blurb that I would like on my novel, if it were up to me. So, what kept me reading and what stopped me from reading? Well, Barnes, as I said, does describe things very well. And it is contemplative, and there are moments that are really quite lovely. And I did want to know what would happen, so I did keep reading. So if a character did make a bad decision, or if they were going to make a bad decision, did they make that decision? And if they did, what were the consequences of that decision? But they didn't seem monumental to me, and they didn't seem full of heat and passion and danger. And I can't say that the novel is humorless, but I also can't say that it's humorous. It's filled with plain, normal, rich people doing plain, normal, rich people things. Which is fine, I suppose. Qualms. Do I have qualms? Well, I found the casual sprinkling of racism here and there to be rather disquieting and caused me pause and a moment of yuck, which you don't really want when you're reading a novel, unless it's there for a reason, and unless it's there to gather you on one side or another of an argument. But if it's just there casually thrown out, it's just yuck, as far as I'm concerned. Another qualm I had was Andre, my favorite character in the novel. I really liked him, and the strange treatment that he got was not just strange, but it was confusing to me. Jane's reaction to the letter that she gets when she's 19 years old from Andre, from whom she hasn't heard in 2 years, struck me as very strange. I didn't quite understand why she had such a violent reaction to it, to the point where she forsook him, or if that's the word, if she decided to let him go and to marry Stephen, who is just okay. And her reaction to him when she's 51 years old, when she meets him again, the violence of the emotional reaction, I didn't fully understand, and therefore I didn't really quite believe. So that was a major qualm to me too. I didn't quite understand the motivation of the decisions that she makes, or if they are presented in a way that was understandable, I didn't believe them. So in the end, Jane Ward, the character, seemed like a contemplative, slightly unhappy woman trying to be happy or happier. And in the end, guess what? Another spoiler. She's fine. As I said, 563 pages of just fine can really wear a drag queen down, or at least it did this one. Do I recommend it? Well, have I mentioned that it's fine? It's good. It's well written. And some people may like it. It wasn't for me. Was there any wonder in this book? Sure. I wonder how it won the Pulitzer Prize. And honestly, as I lay dying, what were those novels? As I Lay Dying, what were the other books? As I Lay Dying, and I think there was a Thornton Wilder in there, John Dos Passos, Edna Ferber, Langston Hughes, but yet this one won. There's no accounting for taste. So, there were moments of wonder in Years of Grace, but they were fleeting moments of wonder, as moments of wonder often are. But there was no lasting feeling of connection with the rest of the world, or no lasting feeling that the best part of the wonder will last and inform the way that you go about your day. And so I must admit that I will look for my wonder elsewhere, because I have heard that it's everywhere, and all I have to do is pay attention. Until we meet again, I am Tootight Lautrec. Mwah.